Hi, everyone. I'm Will Osborne with Madison Trust. I'm an account executive.
I'm Ryan Connolly. I'm also an account executive here. Thanks, Alberto, for introducing us. Excited to get
Yeah.
started.
All right. We are talking about IRA custodians, specifically self-directed IRA custodians. So let's just get right into it. So, that generally, an IRA custodian is an institution that holds IRAs and takes care of the custodial duties required to maintain an IRA. And basically, per the IRS, every IRA needs a custodian. Most financial institutions are basically are qualified to hold IRAs, like banks
Right.
specifically, but other institutions can also hold IRAs if they apply with the IRS. And what specifically do we do as a custodian? Like, what do we hold, basically?
Absolutely. Yeah, we hold things like real estate, private placements, promissory notes, potentially cryptocurrency, precious metals, startups, crowdfunding. So the list goes on. We're pretty much catered towards alternative assets in general. So pretty much anything besides the standard Wall Street products, including like stocks, bonds, and mutual funds.
Right.
So
Exactly. Yeah. So most people I know I was before I started working here, I was used to the more conventional brokerage firm IRA. I personally have one with a large institution that I'm sure everyone's familiar with.
absolutely.
But with this type of IRA, the custodian it's much more important to consider, who you're going to be working with because self-directed IRAs are, so much goes into maintaining it and you need to have a responsive custodian holding your assets to make sure everything's done correctly and in a timely fashion. So let's go to the next page here. All right, so let's dive into some of the roles here. So as I mentioned, the custodian is holding the investments in custody in the account. So when you're placing investments, everything is done in the name of your IRA. So with us, the titling is Madison Trust Company, Custodian, FBO, so for benefit of the account holder's name and their Madison Trust account number. So for all intents and purposes, that's the name of the client's IRA. I'll let you take
Yeah,
the
so
other
in the
one.
second case here, complete transactions based on the direction of the IRA account holder. So it is really truly self-directed. So in regard to the transfer process, the investment process, we're here to help you every step of the way. But, in essence, you're taking care of instructing us to send funds out or instructing us to administer a transfer from a current IRA custodian. So things like that is what we'll help you with. But it is truly self-directed in that regard also.
Yeah, truly self-directed. We're just doing everything per your request. We're also complying with all reporting requirements per the IRS. Mainly, that's going to be Form 5498. That's done every year, no matter what. That's to update the IRS on the account value and report any contributions or rollovers into the account. Form 1099-R, excuse me, is filed when there's a distribution from the IRA, which most people will do once they turn 59 and a half. Otherwise, there'd be an early distribution. We report an early distribution
Yeah.
as well because it is our job, as you get the last bullet point, to maintain the tax advantage status of the IRA. So we are working within the rules set forth by the IRS to make sure everything is compliant and that you don't, jeopardize the tax deferred or tax-free nature of the account, whether it's traditional or Roth. And I mean, what else do we keep track of? I know contributions are something that we keep
Contributions,
track of.
distributions, all the above.
Yeah, rollovers, transfers, that's all on us to, make sure it's coded correctly in the account and reported on those forms that I mentioned before to the IRS every year.
So now we'll hop into what a self-directed IRA custodian does not do. So first, disclaimer, we aren't financial advisors, we aren't tax attorneys. So, we can tell you the nuances of the rules, where they could apply, but we can't provide any investment, tax, or legal advice. In addition, that also comes with not recommending or endorsing any investments. So, we do check the investment to make sure it's holdable, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term, on our platform, but we won't tell you if it's a good or bad investment necessarily, because that's not our role as the custodian. And then lastly, also fair market value for the account owner. That's also would be up to you. We'd reach out in January for that every year and also report that on the necessary tax form, yearly.
Right, because normally if you're working with a conventional brokerage firm, you're dealing with publicly traded securities. It's obvious what the value is. That's
Exactly.
super easy. With alternative investments, we do depend on the client to report the updated valuation each year, which is due by February 28th for the prior year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, and that's the value that we're reporting to the IRS on Form 5498. So yeah, I mean, I'll go to the next side here. We aren't doing, and you touched on this, but we're not performing any due diligence on the investment when the client brings the opportunity to us, because we are reviewing the investment before it's placed. We're doing our best to make sure that the investment isn't breaking any IRS rules. We are limited. We're not going to, again, say if it's a good or bad investment, because that's just not our role. We're holding it. If we can hold it, great. If not, we'll tell you and move on from there. Um, Govern whether an investment is appropriate for the. Yeah, exactly. So this goes back to
Yeah.
making sure we can't making it's just not our role to tell you if this is a good or bad investment. And lastly, rule whether a transaction is prohibited or not. So by the way, we do have a fantastic webinar on prohibited transactions and resources on our website as well that touch on that. But again, it's really not our role to know exactly your relation to everybody that you're involved in if your IRA gets into a particular investment. But if we see something blatant, I mean,
Right.
if something raises red flags, we're definitely going to want clarification for sure. And if you're investing into something we can't hold,
Mhm.
like, S Corp stock, or, what are some other ones?
Life insurance policies, things of that nature.
Yeah,
So
collectibles.
collectibles.
If we see that, we're going to say, no, we can't do this. So there is some of the burden is on us in that regard. But again, it's not our role to act as an advisor or recommend anything to our clients.
Right. And the reason for that is because the rules tend to be, fairly nuanced.
Exactly, for sure. So what should people look for when they're, in the market for a custodian?
Yeah. So, I mean, a few things here. So, obviously, do your due diligence on every company that, especially us, to keep track of their reviews online, kind of what their process is. So, experience and reputation is very important. So, we've been around for 11 years now. So, since 2014 in this case. And right now, we have over 20,000 clients and 4.7 billion, I believe, in assets under custody at this point. So, yeah, just something we're growing every year.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Certainly. Yeah. Our fees are very straightforward. So this is also important because self-directed IRAs do provide a specialized service. Most people are dealing with brokerage firms. They don't need a responsive custodian necessarily, generally speaking, at least. But, you really get what you pay for. We aren't the cheapest in the industry, but we're definitely competitive and our fees are flat as well. So it doesn't matter what the value of your account is, you're still just charged a flat fee depending on the number of investments in your account. Minimum is $110 per quarter, but our fee schedule is online on our homepage. Other custodians, they charge a fee based on the value of your
Exactly.
account, which could work for some people, there's no doubt about it. But if you're investing in real estate and that the value of your investments, or you have an inkling the value of your investments
Investments
will
will grow.
increase,
Yeah.
it's just not an ideal structure in terms of fees. So again, something to consider before moving forward with any custodian, including us. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll say client support. So, I mean, in our case, especially, we have teams every step of the way. So you have us kind of on the front lines answering your, early on questions, if you will. Any questions just about self-directed IRAs, what the process is, things of that nature. Then we have a couple more teams in place, like our support team, who deals with general questions, inquiries, things of that nature. Our transfers team, who deals with the rollover and transfer of funds from your current retirement plans. And then lastly, our investments team, who deals with the, investment, ensuring that all the titling and all the, ins and outs of the investment are done correctly, which is also, very vital for a self-directed
Very
IRA.
important. You got to make sure the IRA is listed as the investor there. Yeah, and when it comes to investment options, to be clear, not investment options that we are marketing to clients or that we have available on our platform, just the investment options we can hold, if you will. So we hold almost everything other than publicly traded securities. And, we're not holding S corporation stock. That's not allowed per the IRS. Same for life insurance or collectibles. Beyond that, anything, if it's an alternative and it's within the rules regarding prohibited transactions, we can hold it. And you touched on a bunch of different asset types: real
Yeah,
estate, promissory notes, private placements in general, hedge funds, crypto, I can go on and on. But we offer all of those. So make sure that we're in checkbook control too. We can hop into that in a little bit. But
absolutely. Yeah.
checkbook control is something we also offer. So if that's something you're looking for, that's applicable for real estate, make sure the custodian that you're considering offers that. So these are all things to consider. can they hold what I'm actually trying to do here?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'll say lastly, educational resources. I mean, our website has a plethora of reading tools, different articles, how, the ins and outs of the checkbook IRAs, the standard self-directed IRAs. So, if you're ever looking for information, that's perfect place to go.
I'm on there every day.
Yeah.
I don't know about you.
No doubt about it.
All right, cool. So we put together some common questions. So, do I need a self-directed IRA custodian for my self-directed IRA? Yes. So we
Exactly.
touched on this in the beginning. Internal Revenue Code Section 408 specifies that every IRA needs a custodian. Banks and other similar depository institutions do qualify as IRA custodians, and that's where we come into play. We're a trust company. We're regulated by the South Dakota Division of Banking, and as such, we can act as an IRA custodian. Now, there is a list out there, and I know we talked about this recently,
Yep.
of non-bank trustees or custodians. By the way, trustee is another term for custodian. There's minor
Yep.
differences. Same thing for the purpose of this presentation. But there's a list of non-bank custodians, and we're not listed there. I don't think there's a single self-directed IRA custodian listed there because we didn't have to apply to be a custodian. We already qualify. So those are companies that basically applied with the Treasury Department to be a custodian. So they're listed specifically right there.
Exactly.
So, yeah. You get that all the time?
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that pretty frequently. And don't be freaked out by that. You're not going to see, that banks sometimes aren't going to be on there, but they automatically qualify, generally speaking, to hold IRAs, as long as they have the infrastructure.
Yeah.
And let's see if it's covered everything there.
Yeah, I'll hop into the next one.
Yeah, go for it.
So yeah, do I still need an SCIRA custodian if I have a checkbook IRA? So yes, in this case, sounds like you more than likely wouldn't need one, but the way it's structured, especially with the checkbook IRA LLC structure, is that the one member of the LLC is the self-directed IRA. So that's what gives you keeps that tax advantage status of the account, gives you the ability to still, have that tax umbrella, be able to invest your IRA funds through that structure. So yeah.
Exactly, because we're still keeping track of any contributions that need to be made. They make it its way to the LLC for the checkbook control, but those transactions need to be reported somewhere. That's where the custodian comes into play. Make sure this is all good to go. You want to take this one as well?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So what are my responsibilities as the self-directed IRA account holder? So basically, as the owner, you possess the responsibility of performing the due diligence for the investments. So you're vetting your investments since we're not a tax professional or a financial advisor. So you're basically, discussing the implications there for yourself. And then also, things like UBIT and UDFI are things that, again, as a self-directed IRA custodian, we're passive. We can't advise in that case. We can only let you know that it could apply to you in this case. So just kind of one of those things that helpful to have a tax attorney or CPA, financial advisor kind of in your corner when vetting investments and talking about those different cases.
Right. Yeah. And it specifically with self-directed IRA custodians, it is your responsibility to understand our processing times and send us the documentation that we need to get investments done in a timely manner. Our standard processing time is 4 business days. Expedited is 2 business days. That's a $50 fee. But as long as we have investment documents for review, the necessary forms are filled out, namely an investment authorization form, and we have funds available, we'll get it done, no problem. But just keep that in mind. We have our processing times too, based on volume. We have over 20,000 clients, luckily, so we just have to make sure everyone's on the same page. And yeah, I guess less important it's important for all IRAs, but we're still keeping track of contributions,
right,
all that good stuff. So it is your responsibility to tell us, like, what year is this for? Do you want this to go to this account or that account? So that is also on the client. And then lastly, we've touched on this a ton through the presentation, but the main difference between us and a brokerage house, we hold alternatives, whereas the big brokerage firms just don't. They make their money buying and selling publicly traded securities. So, I've heard of some companies out there holding alternatives. I don't know about you.
Yeah, sometimes I hear of other companies, bigger companies holding private placements, but it's very select from what I hear in regard to what they will and won't hold. So they have a different, generally longer process. So, just from what I've heard. So,
or maybe you have to have a certain account value, maybe to
exactly.
Yeah.
A
lot of restrictions there. But with us, I mean, minimum cash balance is $500. That's it.
Exactly.
So let's go to the next slide here. Let's talk a little bit about us. So I would say the customer support is what sets us apart. Would you
Exactly.
agree?
I would agree.
Yeah.
So yeah, especially if you looked at our online reviews, Google reviews, BBB, nearly 5 stars across the board. It's just kind of a testament to all of our teams here. Us all the way down to our transfers and investments teams, just answering calls, sending emails, being able to respond in a timely manner, especially having knowledge on these certain topics. So I think it's very important in regard to self-directed IRAs.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. You need us in your corner to get things done for sure. Even with checkbook control, it's required. When it comes to fees, and we touched on this, but the fees with us are flat and straightforward. Again, you can always go to our homepage under client resources and forms, and you'll see the fee schedule right there. But as a quick recap, account opening, $50, investment fee is also $50, and the quarterly fee is $110. Can increase based on the number of investments you have, but it'll start at 110 no matter what. And yeah, minimum cash balance $500. Let's see if there's anything else I missed there. Yeah, perfect. And when it comes to industry knowledge, we've definitely got it for sure. I mean, I know me and a lot of my colleagues are CISP trained and certified. That's Certified IRA Services Professional. And even without that certification, even if because you have to work in the industry for a certain amount of years, but even without that certification, just being up to date on how everything works here, IRS regulations, alternative assets, it's very important.
Exactly.
Throughout the company.
Yeah.
I know you know your stuff and you haven't even met that, 2-year threshold
Exactly.
yet.
Yeah.
But you're almost there, I think.
Yep. Almost there.
I'll just say thank you everyone for joining. We really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Happy to help out here. And we're on the sales side. So if you're looking to open an account, just let us know. And any specific questions, that's what we're here for. Anything?
Yeah, I just say just a quick disclaimer. We generally talk to incoming clients. If you're already an existing client that's watching this webinar, that's fantastic. That's awesome. I'll say the support team is probably the best suited to answer your questions at this point in time. And then anyone kind of looking in their early stages for answers, just kind of things like that, kind of still learning about the product. That's where we come into play.
Exactly.
So just want to mention that as well.
Yeah.